Hey guys, this is Abel here with the Sustainable Self Development Podcast, and in this episode, I'm very excited to bring on Sarah Doyle from Better Life Project, who represents a field or a niche that at the moment is a rather unique one, but I think in the future it will become more and more important. So, she's not a bodybuilding prep coach or a weightlifting coach or a dietitian. She's actually involved with something quite a bit more complex than that, as she's a life coach. So, what she does is she helps people to improve themselves in all areas as a person. So it involves developing a more positive mindset and habits that are conducive to a good life, new ways of interpreting things that are happening to them, such as failures or setbacks. And besides that, she's also helping them to improve their bodies. I mean, our body is the machinery that gives the foundation to the whole system. So getting our diet in check and lifting heavy is pretty much non-negotiable. And I'm really glad that I got in contact with her because I really think that it's important to show people that general self-improvement and personal development and being healthy and fit are not at all mutually exclusive, but rather, on the contrary, are very much in alignment. So anybody who claims that you can live the best life you can while completely ignoring your body is pretty much delusional. And anybody who focuses solely on fitness and the body while ignoring other aspects of personal development is kind of missing the mark. So, in this podcast, I talked with Sarah about how she approaches life coaching and how she helps people to become better, stronger, more resilient, and simply more skilled at living a good life. And one of the overarching theme of this episode is that being positive, ambitious, and having a positive outlook is very much a skill that you need to train. And if you spend many of your years as a cynical, negative person, then be prepared that it will take some training and rewiring until you learn to think and act differently. And I mean, I'm certainly speaking from personal experience here because I lived a good chunk of my life as an incredibly negative, pessimistic and cynical person, and it took me many months of conscious practice essentially to change the way I see things in life, and I'm still working on it. So if this is something you're interested in, I think this episode can be of help for you. So I hope you enjoy it. Again, look at the description under the video if you're watching this on YouTube to see the timestamps, and hang tight until the end because I will summarize the biggest takeaway points from this episode. And yeah, let's get into this episode with Sarah Doyle. Sarah Doyle, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so great to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you because your interest seems to be similar to mine in that you're into fitness and you like squatting heavy and do all this cool stuff, and at the same time you're really into like general self improvement and cracking the code for happiness and all that good stuff. So I'm excited to talk to you. And so for people who may not be familiar with you, would you outline your background and what you do and basically what your professional life consists of these days?
Okay, awesome. Firstly, thank you for having me. It's so great to be able to talk with you. I do think that we share a lot of common interests. Trying to summarize the last few years, basically everything that's gotten me to this point. Okay, so I used to work as a project manager in a human rights international development sector, and I was extremely passionate about what I was doing when I first started. But then as the stress levels went up and the anxiety levels went up, I realized that I no longer loved what I did. And I was faced with this internal conflict of how do you let go of what you thought you were most passionate about? How do you let go of that label that you've given yourself or that people have used to describe you? And it was a very, very difficult thing to do, particularly because life coaching and the prestige of my last job were so different. People respected and understood the security of a full-time 9-to-5 job, but they didn't understand what a life coach was and why I would be compelled or why I would feel the need to leave that to become a life coach, someone who would help people become more confident. And it was a difficult decision to make, but I always remembered sitting down when I was a young kid or a teenager and all I wanted to be able to do was just to motivate people and help them feel better about themselves. And for a while I did that through human rights, but it just never fulfilled me in the way that I am fulfilled now. So the Better Life Project came to be after I met my partner in crime and the love of my life, James. He one day looked at me and said, Sarah, why aren't you life coaching anymore? You know, your job is good, but it's clearly not making you happy. What's going on? So I eventually started to dabble in life coaching again, and my happiness levels went up because I had this awesome thing going on the side. And eventually, after about 15 months, I was able to leave my job, my old job, to work on the Better Life Project full time. And because of my passion for fitness and for good quality food, it just made sense that I would take a holistic approach towards a person's personal growth or development, towards supporting them and helping them achieve their professional or personal goals. And when I talk about exercise and food, it has nothing to do with weight loss or weight management, and everything to do with supporting people be as happy as they can be. I know what it's like to feel stuck in a rut and trapped and lost. And I know how powerful food can be to support us feel better about ourselves. And I know how powerful exercise can be to help us connect with our strength and our agility and our mobility. And it's for those reasons that I support and get excited about exercise, and nothing to do with weight loss. And I always feel that I need to get that across, because I talk about exercise and food quite a lot on my social media or basically to my community. But it's simply because it makes us and has so much potential to increase our happiness. So basically, as a life coach with the Better Life Project, I help people achieve their goals. As a result of my experience, my life experience, a lot of the time I'm helping people become happier and more confident. I'm helping them become more positive. I get what it's like to feel stuck and trapped and basically really crap about yourself. So with that experience combined with some pretty awesome tools and strategies, I help people just feel better about themselves.
Yeah, and you know, like the reason why it's so cool that you do what you do is because fitness and kind of like life coaching or you know, like trying to be happy are two topics that I think a lot of people develop a lot of kind of cynicism towards. You know, fitness, for people who are not super into fitness, is something that only shallow people do, and like the meatheads do only, and kind of like self-improvement and self-development is kind of viewed as these things that these, you know, happiness gurus talk a lot about. And certainly there are a lot of kind of snake oil salesmen out there who are doing these kind of things. So what I would be curious about is, did it take a lot of courage to put yourself out there as someone who kind of claims responsibility for other people's confidence and happiness and these kinds of things?
Yeah. One of the hardest things I think I've had to do was embrace wholeheartedly the new direction that I was going in, which was, I want to be a life coach, and that entails working with people and means that I work with people to help make them happier. And that, to be honest, I didn't feel a responsibility for other people's happiness. I felt an excitement, and I felt hope, and I felt optimism. But the biggest, I guess, the scariest piece was accepting that my new job was going to be a life coach, if that makes sense. I talk quite openly about ego and how my ego prevented me from getting into this journey a little bit faster, because I enjoyed the prestige and the how much people understood what I did in my last job. Like, it was very easy to say I'm a project manager in Trinity College, and it was very hard for me to transition to, well, I'm a life coach and I'm self-employed. That was the hardest and the scariest thing that I've ever had to do. I get excited when people want to work with me to become happier and to achieve their goals and to become more confident, because I've done it, so I know how to do it. And at this stage, I've worked with so many people to do it. I know what works and what doesn't. And I just feel so excited for the person, so proud of the steps that they're prepared to take. I don't think that there's anything better than trying to fight for your happiness. Every single day we work hard on so many things in life that do not bring about authentic happiness. So we have the capacity and the ability to work hard at something. Working hard for your happiness and making a mistake, working hard for your happiness or failing, these are brilliant things to happen because it brings us closer to understanding what authentic happiness means for us. So I would rather support someone work for happiness and fail than not do it at all. It's an incredible privilege or honor to help people figure that stuff out. So I get excited by that. It doesn't scare me at all.
Yeah, and I think it's so cool that in this day and age it's possible to have people like you that help people with these kind of things, especially because there are so many people. I mean, everybody comes to this world, wanting to live a good life and be happy, and I think it's easy to get overwhelmed by kind of the day-to-day hardship that accumulates over time, and that is enough to have people deviate from their path to living a good life. And even just sometimes talking to a friend and that friend giving a different perspective on these things can completely transform the experience. And basically you're doing this as a profession, it sounds like. So what I would be curious about is let's get down to the core of it. Let's say a client comes to you. How does it typically look like? That client is struggling with some life issues, some confidence issues. How is your assessment and kind of looks like?
Okay, so usually the people that come to me are people that have experienced something very similar to me. So I think with life coaching, you attract a lot of people who are very similar to you because they're the people who understand your message and they're the people who get what it is that you're saying. So typically when I work with people, they lack meaning, they lack purpose. They are very, very stuck in a rut and they don't like themselves very much and they have no confidence to try new things. So that's typically what someone who works with me will look like. In terms of trying to create a roadmap to help them move forward with their life, it starts with helping them and trying to encourage them to understand that their confidence and self-esteem, happiness or positivity is a skill. And the more you practice it, the better you get. So I often liken it to the gym. And when you first walked into the gym, you weren't able to do all of the movements perfectly the first time round. You had to practice them. So I often say to some of the girls or guys I work with, you're not going to load 100 kilos onto a bar, walk out, and all of a sudden be able to squat it. So why do you think that your happiness, success, or positivity is the exact same? You're not going to be able to load everything into one basket and understand what to do with each and every element of that perfectly. We're going to need to develop this skill a little bit in order to help you understand what it truly is and help you get it 100%. So it's about taking very, very small steps. And with happiness, quite often we forget that being happy doesn't mean that we've eliminated all of the negativity from our life. It just means that we know how to manage it, and it means that we see the silver lining at the end. So it means that we are able to bounce back, and quite often, and I blame Hollywood for a lot of this, we think that happiness are those cheerleaders that you see in American movies bouncing around, screaming and giggling. And that's one expression of what happiness is, but it doesn't have to be my expression or your expression. Happiness can be experienced, felt, and expressed in many, many different ways. So quite often we have to break down and dismantle what a person actually thinks happiness is, provide what I do is a very clinical outline of what happiness actually is, and then allow them space to be able to figure that out for themselves by taking small steps, by understanding that it is a skill and you will get better at it the more you practice it.
Yeah, and I think I like the way, I like that you're phrasing it that way, because I think when you conceptualize happiness and positive thinking and all these things as a skill that you need to practice, then by definition, you wouldn't expect your life to change with one grand gesture, like going to a seminar or making a New Year's resolution, because that's what people expect, right? I mean, they conditioned themselves for years to be cynical, and laziness and procrastination, all these negative habits. You wouldn't expect that to change overnight, right?
Yeah, 100%. And we practice cynicism and we practice negativity and we practice So one of the tools that I use to support people increase happiness and confidence are affirmations, mantras, call them what you will. They are the dialogue or the conversations that we have in our head that support a belief around a particular thing. And every single day we practice the same affirmation: I'm worthless, I'm not good enough, he'll never like me, I won't get that promotion. We practice negativity and cynicism to a point where we master the skill. We are so good at beating ourselves up when something doesn't go wrong. We are so good at assuming the worst of any situation that we just need to change that record a little bit. And the beauty of it is that our brains are what we call neuroplastic, so we can reprogram them to support different beliefs and a different way of thinking about things. And again, this comes back to it being a skill. The more we do it, the better we get. And that skill, from a neuropsychology point of view, is that our brain is slowly developing new pathways and new ways of doing things. So
Yeah, and I mean technically it is what happens, right? Because myelination, right? That is like literally a process where your brain is like essentially getting acclimatized to doing certain things as opposed to other things. So it is a technical description. Um, and and it's funny because when someone who is having all these issues develop the wrong habits for years, and then that person looks at someone like Anthony Robbins, who is like crushing it and is super positive about everything, that is almost the equivalent of like an obese person who has never exercised in his life looking at someone who is like working out for 2 hours a day and squatting 200 kilograms and wanting to be there next week. Like, realize that you essentially developed almost like emotional and mental obesity, or I don't even know how to analogize it. So you mentioned these mantras and little, almost seems like a mental emotional maintenance kind of routine that you go through with people. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
yeah, so I call it emotional or spiritual first aid. And the idea is that we all have this, what I refer to as an inner mean girl voice or an inner mean boy voice. And it's basically the person that criticizes us, gives out, beats us up when we've done something wrong. He or she is the person that says, you're fat, you should go to the gym, no one is going to love you until you lose 10 pounds. You missed your squat, that means that you're worthless, you'll never be good at anything. So that's our inner mean girl or inner mean boy voice. And it's basically a set of beliefs that we have developed over time around our abilities and around our worth. And we have developed this dialogue and these conversations, and we have these statements that we constantly come back to, that we say about ourselves when things don't go according to plan. So quite often what happens is when we identify that inner mean girl voice, that inner mean boy voice, we think that we need to get rid of it straight away. We think that that inner mean girl voice is a B. Can I say a bad word?
Oh,
Go for it.
Okay, cool. Sorry, I wasn't sure. We think our inner mean girl voice is an absolute bitch and we need to get rid of her. We need to beat her down. And I look at that and I go, that's fundamentally flawed. What you are trying to do is to eliminate a part of you because you think it's bad. Whereas what we need to do with that inner mean girl voice is actually embrace her and show her love. That inner mean girl voice represents, or inner mean boy voice represents, fear, insecurity, a part of us that is threatened, a part of us that is scared, and we're trying to get rid of that. Self-acceptance is about looking at the good and the bad and embracing both of them. It's not about going, oh, I only want the good, the bad stuff can fuck off. It's about going, the good and the bad is there and I embrace it together. And that means that we need to look at our inner mean girl voice and go, hey, what's up? I know that you're there. I can see that you're in pain, but I'm going to try and make this better. But you're going to be okay. And that's the affirmation that we need to practice. We need to remind ourselves, I am enough. I am going to be okay. And if anyone out there poo-poos the idea of an affirmation, we've been using them, you've been using them for a very, very long time. The only problem is that you've been using it to make you feel worse. You've been using it to make you feel fairly crap about yourself. So we need to be able to create a new affirmation to target that set of negative beliefs to support you actually feel good about life again. It's a very self-compassionate piece.
And yeah, and just to hammer this home even more, because yeah, as you said, people are very skeptical about these concepts because they sound kind of woo-woo at first. But I guess the key thing here is that these affirmations are also leading to certain actions, which are then transformative. So do you also help people on the action taking side and give like specific advice on what to do?
100%, and that's at the heart of what life coaching or coaching is that it's targeting the set of beliefs that lead to the action, creating a set of beliefs and holding the person accountable to the action. So it's a fundamental piece of coaching. It's a very future focused practice, and in order to solidify this new set of beliefs or this new affirmation, I'll quite often go, okay, so you don't think that you're enough, and you say this to yourself constantly. The belief is, I am not enough. The new affirmation is, I am enough. I am going to be okay. What do we need to do? What does your behavior need to be to show yourself that you are enough or that you are okay? So quite often it could be mirror talk, for example. They stand in front of the mirror, they repeat to themselves over and over again, I am enough, I'm going to be okay. It could be going into the gym and trying something without fear of failure or without fear of being judged for making a mistake. So yes, there will 100% always be an action or a behavior to follow it up in order to solidify this new belief. And it's a fundamental part of this whole coaching thing. There's no point in just talking about all the stuff. I say it to my clients all the time. You want to be more confident wearing that red dress, you put on the red dress. You put on the red dress and you dance around your apartment and you get comfortable and used to wearing the red dress. Then you put on the red dress and walk to the shops. Then put on the red dress and go to the pub. Then put on the red dress and go to the nightclub. But don't lose 10 pounds if you want to wear the red dress. You're enough the way that you are. Put on the dress now. So that's how we get confident. We take action.
Yeah, and so for like, how do you strike the balance between wanting to strive for improvement and wanting to be better, which I guess is fundamentally a good goal to have and is a good pursuit to have, to always try to improve, but at the same time not beat yourself up and don't feel inadequate just because you're not there yet. How do you try to strike the balance between being content with what you have and not wanting to improve and being ambitious still?
I guess the idea, how I approach it, is that ambition or wanting to be better should not be mutually exclusive to my body, or to how attractive other people find me or how attractive I find myself. So be ambitious, strive for being better, demand a higher standard of yourself constantly. But you don't always need to express that through your body, and you don't always need to express that through your attractiveness. So if I work with someone who wants to be better, I'm going, brilliant. Tell me how you want to, impact the world. Tell me how you want to help your family more. Tell me how you want to be able to be a kinder, more compassionate, more social human being. And they're going, oh, but I only want to be better through my body. And I'm going, okay, well then that's the problem. The problem is that you've identified your self-worth vis-a-vis your body. And you think the only way that you can be better or be more ambitious or be the version of you is when you look a certain way. So we can strike the balance. We just need to broaden our understanding of what it means to be better and understand why it is that we feel our body needs to be better and why that category of ambition is even important. There's healthy 100%. And I believe that everybody needs to exercise for happiness and for optimal well-being. But I don't think that striving to change our bodies or to have a better body is, I don't want to say valid, but I don't think it's at the heart of our development or growth as human beings. I don't think our life's work is to look better or to have a better body or abs or tight bum. I fundamentally believe that our life's work is to be able to make an impact on this world and do things that we're proud of. And I think that those things will be emotional and spiritual in nature. I don't think they'll be physical. I don't think it'll be to look a certain way. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm glad that you finished on that thought, because this has reminded me of a question that I completely forgot to ask. Because ultimately, we're talking about happiness. And if that's what we're after, I guess it would be important to actually put some definitions at the term. And I know that you have some thoughts on this. So what would you define as happiness? Is there even such a thing as definition when it comes to happiness?
Oh, 100%. And I didn't come up with the definition. All of these awesome positive psychologists over in the States did. Happiness is two things. One, it's the experience of positive emotion like joy, pride. And two, it's how well we progress towards our life's goals. So it's about movement. It's about constantly striving. So it is similar to what you were saying there about being better and doing better, but it's not purely through our bodies, it's through that emotional and spiritual contribution or impact as well. So it's when we experience positive emotion, and that's the very subjective part of happiness. Happiness, the definition is very objective. It's two things: positive emotion and progress towards our life goals. The subjective part of happiness is you might dig love more than I do. You might be more excited about pride than I am, but for me, gratitude, oh, unreal. When I think about things that I'm grateful for in my life, I'll well up. So that's the subjective part of it. And that's the part that people always disagree on. It's like, no, this makes me happy. And I'm going, yeah, no, of course it does, because it's a positive emotion, but it doesn't do it for me. This does it for me. So we can define happiness very, very clinically. And then we have so much space inside of that to go, what's important for me is this, but we're losing sight of the fact that you're moving towards it. And that's the part that makes you happy. The progress, the movement, the constantly walking towards something.
Yeah, and it kind of ties into the whole eudaimonian happiness model. I'm sure you're familiar with that, but it's basically about the whole concept of basically generating happiness into your life by living a life that you feel like it makes sense and you're making a dent in the universe in some way. And I know that for me, moments like this, doing this interview with you, before these interviews, I always feel tons of fear, tons of resistance. So many things can go bad. The internet connection can go bad, or I could ask stupid questions and I could embarrass myself. I always feel tons of resistance, but ultimately these are the moments that afterward just make me feel so fulfilled. And yeah, and so would you agree that the reason why a lot of people almost fail to step on a path of happiness is because a lot of the things that lead to a happy life are kind of involve an initial struggle, like something that, like a barrier that you need to push through?
Absolutely. There's that resistance that we experience when it comes to trying new things or to so if we look at happiness, and if everyone just imagines a plate or a circle in some way, 40% of that plate is going to be our genetics. So it's things that we were born with, and 40% is our predisposition to happiness. 10% is our circumstances. And this is where a lot of people fall down on. When they look at happiness, they think that the majority of their happiness will be controlled by the things that they have or the things that they do, whereas it's actually only 10%. So we spend up to, God, crazy, like I look at some of my clients and I go, you're spending 90% of your time, energy and resources working on 10% of your happiness. And they look at me and they go, oh my God, I've been doing it wrong all of my life. And I go, yes, so let's change it. Up to 50% of our happiness can be controlled by what we call intentional activities or happiness increasing strategies, like doing nice things for people, like practicing spirituality, like exercising, like creating goals, that sort of stuff. But we spend so much of our time just counting and collecting all of the things that we have, going, I've got the house, I've got the Gucci shoes, I've got the Michael Kors bag, I've got the abs, but I still feel empty inside. And I'm looking at them and I'm going, yeah, no, I know you are. Because everything else, you're not accounting for that. You're not accounting for the stuff that you could do with your life and do so differently to help make you happy. So that pie chart is fundamentally mind-blowing. When I saw that for the first time, I just went, I've been doing my happiness all wrong. And it just triggered something in my head. And I just went, it's not about the stuff that I have or the stuff that I do with my money. It's about the connection that I make with people. It's about being kind. It's about setting goals that actually change the world, that sort of stuff. God, it was mind-blowing. So happiness is something that we can define and understand very, very well. people don't know how to do that because we live in a very materialistic culture that is obsessed with Michael Kors bags and fancy cars, and I blame social media for so much of it. So we just don't know how to do better because we've been conditioned for so long to think that our happiness is the sum of that 10%, and it's not. There's so much more to it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because there's a lot of you hear a lot of different stuff about how many, like, what percentage of your happiness is under your control, and the 50% or 40% that you just said is actually one of the more positive numbers. I have a friend who is a PhD candidate in neuroscience, and he said that 80% of happiness is genetic, and I'm like, oh man, like. It's almost like, I think, regardless of what the science is saying, I think it's everyone's best interest to believe, even if incorrectly, but to believe that the majority of what we can get from happiness is under our control.
Yes,
Would you
absolutely.
agree?
Oh, 100%. And it's about letting go of, to a point, those circumstances that we've tried really hard to control. So it's about letting go of the job promotion and the fancy car and the big mortgage. And we can still strive for those things and have those things, but not rely on them so much to bring about happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we talk about self improvement and self development and improving our lives, there is obviously a lot of areas in our lives that we can improve. And I know for myself, when I kind of make an analysis of all the things that I could do with my life, in terms of social skills and fitness and whatever, I can't even dance. So I guess that would be a form of improvement. So it's almost like I realized that my appetite for self-improvement almost exceeds my capacity to do the things, because you can only do so much at one time. So when you help people, how do you like to guide them in deciding what areas to focus on first?
Usually they guide me. I just help them articulate it. A huge part of the work I do around self-esteem and confidence building will be self-acceptance and appreciation. So accepting that where we are right now is a good thing, that we are where we need to be in our life, and then being appreciative of that. It's very easy to fall into the trap when we're setting goals or striving towards development to should all over ourselves, or to feel like we must do something, or to have very high expectations. And it's a very precarious line that we need to be very mindful of. We need to be able to focus our primary efforts on accepting ourselves and being appreciative of where we are now. And I believe it's very important to do that before we strive for development or growth. If we're striving for development or growth and we're being motivated by pain or hate or discomfort, we're not going to get very far in life. So by showing love and appreciation of where we are right now, and then creating a goal to motivate us forward, we are going to be excited and happy, and our brain loves positive feedback, and our confidence is going to go up because we're doing things that we're good at, we're doing things and experience success. So the initial leverage that pain or discomfort might cause is very short term. So we'll only get so far before we need to come back and find what that love is again, and find out what that thing is that we can gain. So it's for me, the primary thing is acceptance and love and appreciation, and then let's look at development and growth.
Right, and let's talk about something that I believe I heard you touch on this in one of your videos, or maybe it was a podcast interview, but I would like to call it motivational seminar syndrome, where people get very fired up about changing their lives, and then the gray everydays come, and kind of reality hits, and you have to wake up at 7 a.m. and go to work, and it's of course impossible to feel motivated all the time. So how do you like to guide through people in this process of doing the things that they need to do, even at times when they don't feel super enthusiastic and motivated?
Mm-hmm. That comes back to basic goal setting, or goal programming, as I like to call it, and understanding with clarity and confidence the plan and the steps that we need to take towards that. So motivation, again, it's a muscle, it's a skill. The more we use it, the better we get. So it's important that when we're motivated, we act. But if you find that you're a person who suffers from very low motivation, what you might need to do is look at your plan. You take one step every single day. When you're feeling super motivated, maybe you take 2 or 3 steps. And then when you're not feeling so good, when you're not feeling so motivated, you're still on track. So for me, the important thing is, one, understand in great detail the goal. Understand where you want to go, what steps you need to take, and understand what those smaller chunks are. So when I make goals or program for goals, I'll usually go on a 12-week timeline. Again, that helps motivation. Sometimes if we work longer than that, we just get bored, we get restless. We're like, I haven't achieved anything, I'm going to give up now. And then self-sabotage kicks in. And then we reverse engineer that goal. So you ask yourself, what are the 12 little things that I need to do to show me that I'm moving closer to that goal? So I'll do this with my squat goal, for example. 150 kilos is the dream. What do I need to do to show me I'm moving closer to that goal? Create a series of sub goals. And when I hit those sub goals, I get so motivated and I get so psyched up because I feel like I'm moving closer to that. And I understand that every day I need to be able to create habits or patterns or behaviors to support this goal from an almost subconscious way, so that I have healthy habits that actually support that happening. So it's going to be mobilizing, going to the gym, drinking water, making sure that I get enough protein, sleeping, recovering, and things like that. When you understand your goal in that level, we don't always have to be motivated. We don't always have to be fired up and ready, but we understand that there is a small task that we do need to get done to support something happen. So motivation, I think, it's obviously so important. It can sometimes be a little bit overrated, because we think that unless we have it, we can't act. So it kind of depends on who you are, and this is why goal programming can be so subjective. If you place a lot of value on motivation, when you are motivated, act. Do as much as you possibly can, and then give yourself a break when you are not motivated. If motivation isn't that important to you, but confidence is the biggest thing, one small step every single day. Build yourself up for success. Do something that you know you're going to be able to do well. And that way you'll always have clarity and confidence and be moving in some direction.
Yeah, and I guess regardless of your baseline motivational levels, I think I'm curious if you see this with your own clients, or if you experience this with yourself, but looking back on past progress always makes it easier. So, when you see that you've accomplished something for the past couple of months, and you see, okay, I did this and this, that is signaling to yourself and is an evidence that, okay, I'm in fact capable of doing this because I've already done it.
Right. Absolutely. And that's, if one of the most powerful things that a person can do to increase their confidence is to look at past progress and go, yes, I've experienced success. I'm competent. I'm so much more excited about the next step and about the next part of my journey. So that's why we need to be able to program a goal very carefully and build someone up for success. If I have a client that looks at me, and I don't do weight loss with my clients, but on this particular occasion I did, she wanted to lose 5 stone. And if she lost 5 stone, she would have turned around and you would have seen, it would have been a profile and there wouldn't have been anything left of her. She would have disappeared. And I'm looking at her and I'm going, yeah, but when you don't lose 5 stone, you're going to feel so disheartened. It's never going to be enough. 2 pounds a week is never going to be enough because you have such a grandiose goal. Let's build yourself up for success. So all of a sudden 5 stone became 5 pounds. And she was successful. She lost 2 pounds and she went, Sarah, I'm almost halfway. I'm almost halfway towards my goal. I'm doing such a good job. And I went, I know, because you can do this. But the condition on which you've based your success was realistic, was manageable and doable. And you feel good. So now you are excited to move forward. But if your goal was 5 stone, you'd look at that 2 pounds and go, it's not good enough. I failed. I don't know what I've done wrong. So past progress is so important when it comes to confidence building and actually feeling motivated or excited or enthusiastic about the final output.
Yeah. It's I had a similar thing the other day that I was focused on because I was one of those bros in the gym who never trained legs for a long time, and for a long time it's been a priority to bring up my legs, and I realized that okay, first let's not focus on the big legs. First, let's just become comfortable, frying my quads on the leg extension machine because right now I'm completely not comfortable doing that. So let's start there, and it's almost like an identity, right? I'm the kind of person who is comfortable frying my legs on the leg extension machine. So let's talk about the practicality of this a little bit because ultimately the goals that you achieve and the results you get will be determined by kind of like your daily habits. Are you placing a large emphasis on developing daily kind of routines, habits, and rituals that kind of you can do on autopilot?
Yeah, 100%. So a lot of the time, a goal is just a different, it's a small thing that we can do towards building a lifestyle for ourselves. So when it comes to building goals around confidence, like that isn't just a fad. It's not something that we're just trying to do for Christmas and then all of a sudden we can revert back to feeling low confidence and low self-esteem. When we create a goal around our health, our happiness, our confidence, and our self-esteem, it's not just a 12-week fad. It's not just, oh, I need to be confident for this one day and then I can go back to feeling really bad about myself, or I just want to be able to run a 10-kilometer race and then I can go back to feeling really lazy and getting the bus everywhere. It's a lifestyle, so we will 100% benefit from having healthy habits to support us have a healthy, permanent, long life, longevity. So it's about identifying small things that we can do every single day. Tony Robbins says it all the time. Small habits build success. Small habits build this life that we've always wanted. So get the client, get the person that I work with to go, well, what do you think that you need to do every single day to support that happen? And they might go, I don't know, maybe I need to go to the gym. And I'm going, okay, well, think about this realistically. Are you going to go to the gym every day? Probably not, no. So what could you do every single day? I could drink 2 liters of water. And I'm going, brilliant, yes. Let's get to the point where you can drink 2 liters of water and you don't even know that you're doing it anymore. Let's get to the point where you will walk outside your apartment block, see the sun shining, and you just walk to work. You don't think about whether or not you have enough fare in your pocket for the train or the bus. You just go. Let's get you to the point where you winning and you have a healthy and nutritious breakfast. Let's get you to the point where you can get changed, see your reflection in the mirror and go, oh my God, you're fabulous, you badass you. Like, let's get to that point. So 100% habits are crucial because the goal, whether or not it's confidence, self-esteem, health, or fitness, is a lifestyle. It's creating a permanent and positive set of beliefs around your abilities and around your worth. And habits are so super important.
Yeah, and I love all these things that you shared. And just before we slowly start to wrap up, let's I wanna pick your brain about something that is very near and dear to my heart. And I saw you upload a video on this, and that is the topic of failure. And and there is first the initial fear of failure, and then is the unfortunate times when failure actually happens and mess ups happen, because it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, right? So first, let's talk about the fear of failure. How do you advise people on that, and what do you think is a good kind of philosophical approach to take about the fear of failure?
I love me some failure. I think we have so much to learn from failure and from mistakes. So the first thing that I will always do is to help people see how beautiful failure actually is. I would rather be the person out there making mistakes, falling, failing, being judged or being rejected than the person who was on the sidelines of life, wondering, wishing, or hoping what life would be like if they actually did something. So I'd rather be out there getting down and dirty with my goals, with my dreams, and with my vision, because I'd rather be the person who's always trying. And that is something that I've believed right from the beginning. January of this year up until September of this year, I refer to as my shit fest. So it was not a good time for me personally or professionally. I struggled in so many ways, and I had to have some really difficult conversations around some really hard things. But I never once feared failure, because I knew that if things didn't work out now, that I would have so much. One fundamental problem with our society is that we have allowed people to think that failure is a bad thing. We have allowed people to internalize and over-identify with failure. We live and we support a fixed mindset mentality around our growth and development, around our experience and opportunity, to the point where if we fail at something, if we see a person fail at something, we go, it didn't work out, just try something different. No, it didn't work out. You find a new way of doing it. You find a new way of expressing a message, a new way of doing the same thing. You stand up and you keep going. And I say this to my clients all the time: heels in, head up, heels in, head up. You fail, brilliant. You found one way to not do something, but there's a million other ways that you can do something. Failure is just a message, and if we listen carefully, we will see what that message is and become one step closer to success. And failure is something that I feel so passionate about as well. And when my clients fail, and I do this with my clients quite a lot, I actually design stuff with them so they will fail, so they will make a mistake, so that they will experience judgment and rejection. It's exposure therapy. If you're afraid of failing, then fail. Fail so that you can see that it's not that bad. Fail so that you can learn that you will stand back up again. Fail so that you will realize that there is so much more there in failure to learn and to grow than there ever will be from your success. And there's far too many of us scared of doing that. And we need to start to change our beliefs around it very quickly.
Yeah. And I mean, just to echo your sentiment, I mean, I heard something from an entrepreneur that I really admire, which was that he collects his failures in a document, and if he doesn't get at least 4 or 5 failures per month, then he's not satisfied, because that means that he's not trying enough things. And and so inspired by that, I started doing the same, and I have about 6 more days to have at least 2 more failures. So I'm at the moment I'm actually not satisfied. And yeah, like, you're exactly right. I mean, all the successful people, if you look at their biography, it is with tons and tons of setbacks and mess ups. The final thing on this point is that ultimately it will happen. You have a client who writes to you in despair, like, oh my God, I was on track with my diet, but I just ate a jar of peanut butter or something like that. What do you, because as we know, being on track and gaining momentum and being in a flow, that's easier once you're there, but bouncing back after a mess up, that can be very, very challenging. So what do you advise them in these kind of situations?
This is I'm actually smiling because this happened to my client from yesterday. So basically, and this is the only client that I actually work with on a weight loss goal. So it's incredible that you said that. Self-compassion for me is the biggest thing. Quite often when we have a goal and we fall short of that goal, we beat ourselves up, and our inner mean girl voice or inner mean boy voice gets very, very loud, and they start affirming our weaknesses, our vulnerability, our mistakes, all that sort of stuff. Whereas if you take a moment to picture a young person who you absolutely adore and love in your life, it could be a son, a daughter, a niece, or a nephew. And I want you to imagine that they just had a sweet, they just had a piece of cake. And then all of a sudden they grab their belly and they go, oh my God, I'm so fat. I'm such a failure. I'm going to have all of the cake now. You wouldn't turn around to that young 6 or 7-year-old and go, oh, Jesus, love, you are a bit fat. Now let's put you on a diet. It'll start with fasted cardio tomorrow, and then we're going to severely restrict your calories by up to 600. Now, you'd never, ever in your wildest dreams say that to a 7-year-old. You wouldn't say that to your best friend. You wouldn't say that to your sister, but we do it to ourselves all of the time. We are humans. We are going to make beautiful, wonderful mistakes. But it's how you pick yourself back up again that will define how you move forward, not the actual mistake. So yeah, start fresh. clean slate tomorrow. You made a mistake. You're human. Well done. I was wondering there for a while. You were doing so good. I was like, am I talking to a demigod or am I talking to a human? It's perfectly natural and normal. So just start fresh tomorrow. It's how you respond and react to that mistake that will define your journey as you move forward, not the actual mistake. So this is where, again, I think it's very important, and I learned this from one of my friends who's a nutritionist. He said that whenever he's working with a client around weight loss, so it could be the same for anything, never restrict yourself in any way. Never say that you can't have the thing that you love the most in the world. So if you love peanut butter, how much peanut butter do you need to feel satisfied every day? A tablespoon. Then have your tablespoon. Enjoy it. Savor it. But never deny yourself something that you love. And that can be the same of any goal in the world. Never deny yourself of the things that you love. Never say that you can't have fun, that you can't feel excited. If a goal isn't fun, you shouldn't be doing it. It shouldn't be in your life. If it's not fun, if it doesn't bring you joy and pleasure, life is far too short.
Yeah. Although I guess there's a balance there, because for me, the amount of peanut butter that I need to eat to feel satisfied is like starts right around the jar. So,
okay.
But I guess having gaps is also fun. So it's like a balance between the two.
Yeah.
All right. So just before I ask you the very last question, please tell people where they can find you and what kind of services you have and anything that you think people should check out.
Okay, so you can find me at www.thebetterlifeproject.ie. I'm on Instagram at Sarah_the Better Life Project, and you can find me on Facebook at the Better Life Project Ireland. I offer advice to people to help them achieve their professional and or personal goals. And most of that revolves around how people can become more confident, how people can believe in themselves more. So it's self-esteem, confidence, and happiness. That's the area that I love the most, and it's the area that I work in the most. Confidence coaching, to kind of be quite black and white about it. Yeah.
Awesome. And so just to finish this interview, which by the way it was great, and I think I love the things that we went through and the concepts you shared. So just before we close this call, if we can just give a couple of bullet points for people who maybe want to change their lives from today onwards, so that they can take action and get on the right path, what couple of kind of takeaways would you tell them?
Okay. Be grateful. So whether or not you have a gratitude practice, it's important to be able to progress wherever we are. So if you don't express gratitude, before you go to bed every night, write down 3 things that you're grateful for. If you already express gratitude, take it up a notch and be as specific as possible, but don't express gratitude for the same thing. So always have something new and something different. Stop beating yourself up. We are so incredibly mean to ourselves. So mean. It breaks my heart when I hear clients talk about themselves in the way that they do, or friends, or when I'm online. It honestly, I just get so sad when I see the way some people talk to themselves, when I see people condition their happiness and their success and their ability to feel beautiful in the world based off their abs, or how many likes they get on Instagram, or how many friends they have on Facebook. That stuff doesn't matter. And I don't care what social media influencer you think that you are, or what movie star that you think that you are. On your deathbed, your tombstone is not going to say 10,000 followers. So why do we spend so much time thinking about that and wasting our beautiful energy on that? Social connections. Spend more time talking to people. Spend more time nurturing and developing friendships. Spend more time talking to your mom on the phone. So that sort of stuff. So be grateful for the things that you have. And if you think that you're grateful, be more specific and never mention the same thing. Be kinder to yourself. We beat ourselves up. We are our own worst enemy, but that never ever works. I do this quite a lot at my workshops. But when I ask people, when something goes wrong, do you beat yourself up? The whole room will put up their hand. and I'll look at all of them and I'll say, and has that ever motivated you more? Has that ever made you feel good about yourself? And everyone puts down their hand. And I'm going, okay, so let's change the record. Let's be kinder to ourselves instead, because I promise you that will make a massive, massive difference. And then call your mom more, and call your best friend more, and actually dedicate time and energy to developing those relationships and showing those people how much you love them. Those three things are mind-blowingly simple, but they will just make such a massive impact to our lives.
Awesome. Yeah, I will summarize these points in the description just so people can come back and read it quickly at any time they want. This was awesome. Yeah, I love it. And yeah, Sarah, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure. I really enjoyed talking with you.
All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode with Sarah. I really liked talking with her. I think that her presence just radiates such a cool, positive vibe, and I won't be making any smart-ass comments like, I'm jealous of her boyfriend, but seriously, I wish I had a lot more people like her around me all the time. So just before you go, let's look at the two important lessons from this episode. Number one is don't view your personality, how happy you are, how motivated you are, how confident you are as some God-given gift. Instead, think of it like a muscle that you need to train over time. I think we tend to, once we get to a certain age, just put ourselves in a box and think, okay, I'm just like this, I've been pretty unhappy up until now, I don't have much confidence, etc. And we tend to settle for, well, that's just who I am. And I think that when we hear these super intelligent phrases like, oh, just be yourself, or why would you pretend to be something you're not, it can encourage us to think like that even more. But really, and I expressed my views on this beforehand, I think that that kind of belief is very self-limiting and it just doesn't serve you in any way. So I think it's really in your best interest to just think about your mindset and your personality like you think about a muscle, like the long head of your triceps. It's something that usually takes some extra effort to train, and most people ignore how to train it right? I mean, most people don't realize that tricep push downs and close grip bench presses don't target the long head of your triceps effectively. And similarly, they ignore that changing yourself and the way you think requires you to be proactive about it and monitor things like your daily routines and even some of your vocabulary for a long time. And if you decided to make a change and become a better version of yourself, and within a week you don't see these amazing results, don't get discouraged. It's all a matter of practice and repetition. So that would be the first big lesson for me. The second one is think about failure like an outcome of an experiment you just ran in a lab. It's something that first means that you tried something with inherent risk, which is already a good thing because it means that you're willing to push beyond what's safe. And as a second point, every single failure gives you a guideline as to what paths not to pursue or pursue differently. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm immune to this. I'm full of insecurities and fears when trying something new. And when it fails, of course, I feel like I've been punched in the face. But at the same time, I realize the value in pursuing new things and taking risks. And that's why I started to keep a log of my failures and actually try to collect more and more every month. And thereby I almost force myself to take risks and go through the fire a little more. So these were my two big takeaways. View your personality and your mindset as a muscle that you need to train and shape to your desire with enough practice, and view failure as something positive that you don't need to fear. And the underlying premise behind both of these ideas is a growth mindset or a growth-oriented thinking, which believes that your future is in your hands and not in some genetic predisposition or something like that. So I hope you enjoyed this interview. Check out Sarah's stuff on betterlifeproject.ie, and you can also find her on YouTube with the name Better Life Project. If you like what you heard in this podcast and you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on iTunes. If you watch this on YouTube, subscribe to support this show. And yeah, I think that was all. So thank you for listening and see you next time.